Hi everyone, this is a image that I took up in the Kimberley, and what I want to do is show you how I create a black and white file from my color files. There's a few little things that I like to do, and I will show you as we go along. So first thing I'll do is show you the original, which is this one here. I thought this would be quite a nice one for black and white because of the clouds and the blue sky. So all I've done to get this effect is I've initially just created a little bit extra contrast, just brought the black point up a little bit. So I've just done a levels adjustment layer here. And you can see I've got a pretty good histogram. It's showing most of the tones are in the mid-tone area. The next thing I want to do is I want to add a color fill. And then also a selective color adjustment layer. So by doing that sort of gives you the ability to manipulate the colors in the image and create the black and white that you want. And the beauty of doing this is that when you use selective color, you have all these different channels, color channels that you can use, plus you have white, neutrals, and black. So in Photoshop, you don't have the option of the white, neutrals, and black. So it's a good technique. So what we do is we create a new color fill, put that on top, and what you want to do is you want to make that a black or a white or something in between, a grey, something that doesn't have color tone. So what we do is we go up to solid color and we select black if we want, or it can be middle grey, or it can be white, doesn't really matter. Click OK. And then the first thing we do is then change the blend mode down to color. That creates the black and white look that we've got there. So I'll just delete that because we've already got it, which is this one here. The next thing you do is you add a selective color adjustment layer underneath this color fill layer 1. Okay, so if we were to do that, we would just go here to selective color. It's hidden from me for a minute there. I don't normally do that way. I normally get my selective color from up here. So the same difference, doesn't really matter where you get it from. So we've got that there, and what we do now is we go through all the different colors and we think about what we can get out of these different colors. So like the blues, for example, if I add a lot of black to the blue, you'll see we get a change there. If we go to cyans, same thing again. We're going to get more black. We can also adjust these sliders around and they make some changes to the image as well. So you go through all those, you mess around, but the ones that work the best, well, neutrals works the best, and blacks is pretty good as well. So with the neutrals, I generally don't tend to put the black in as much as the other ones, as the other color channels. I tend to generally add, let's get back to 0, I mess with magentas and cyans, and I'm pretty much just pushing the sliders around until I find the results that I'm looking for. The same, you go into the blacks, and the magentas in the blacks can make a huge difference. You can see there. So of course we can create as many of these layers, as adjustment layers, as we like, so we can really get on and create some amazing black and white contrast. So I've done that. I'll just delete that. I'll go back to the one that I've already created and I'll just show you the settings. So I haven't gone too hard. The good thing about doing this though, as opposed to using something like Nik software, is that you don't get a lot of that horrible noise starting to show up in the dark blue areas. It works really well, and I find this to be the best conversion technique. So in this one here, you can see that I've gone through, there's a little bit of black in the reds, probably a little bit, there's a bit of mucking around here in the yellows. You can see these settings that I've got. So again, I'm just pushing the sliders around until it gets the result that I like. Cyans, I've got a change there. The blues, I'm working visually. And then, of course, the whites, there's a changes there, and neutral. So I'm just going through each one of these channels and pushing it around to get the results I want. Now, you could copy what I've got here, but it's all, it depends on the image. So if you've got an image that hasn't got as much contrast, you might need to push the contrast a little bit more. If it's got a lot of contrast, you won't have to push it as much. So I've done that, and that's given me a pretty much a good starting point for a black and white conversion. Next thing I've done is I've just actually stamped visible. I've put a flattened layer on top. So the command to do that is Command Option Shift E. So if I was to do that, I would select the top layer in the stack, just ignore these layers because they wouldn't normally be there. So Command Option Shift E, and that's done a stamped visible copy, which is this one here. So it's basically a flattened version of everything that comes below it. The reason I've done that is because now I wanted to create the underlay filter effect. I've got a flattened version. I'll duplicate that layer. So you can see now I've got a layer 1 copy. And this will now become my underlay filter. You can see I've already got one here, but this is what I'm going to do it for. So to create the underlay filter, normally you would desaturate the image, which is Command Shift U, but because it's black and white already, I don't have to worry about that. So all I need to do is invert that image. So Command I. Now you'll see you get a negative. We go up to Filter, Blur, and down to Gaussian Blur, and we're going to blur it out quite a few pixels. It depends on the image size as to how many pixels you blur it. Give it a good amount of blur so that it really doesn't look like an image anymore, just a blurry tone. Click OK, and then you change the blend mode from normal down to overlay. So I've done that, and if I turn that on and off, you'll see what it's done to the image. It kind of balances it all out, so the dark areas get lighter and the light areas get darker. But all I've used it for, I'll delete what I've done there. This is the one I've created before. All I've used it for is to actually brush through the land there, just to give that a bit of a pop. So you can see I've created that, added a layer mask to it, so just down here, and you can see where I have actually done the brushing through there. Okay, I've made sure that you can see that if I go back, you can see this edge is quite fine here. It's because I've actually selected it properly with the marquee tools, with the lasso tools, and that way when I lighten that area, it's not going to go outside and create a halo. That's important. You don't want to have halos around any of your images. So once I've got that, I'm pretty happy with the black and white. I think it needs more. So all I've done after that is I've added a level adjustment layer, and I've darkened basically through the sky, a little bit in the foreground, just increase the contrast. So you can have a look at this here. So you can see now I've got this gradient. So when I do that, add that gradient, it's quite simple. I'll just turn that off. Go back to this top of the stack, which remember these aren't going to be here in normal times. Create a new levels adjustment layer, and I'm just going to darken everything down, something like that. I'm basically looking at the sky. If I want to use a gradient, the gradient tool is G on the keyboard, and all I need to do is hold down the Shift key and just drag a gradient, something like that. And I can start it anywhere I want. And you can see you can just do little bits, which creates a small feathered area, or you can do a lot, creates a bit more. If you start close, further down, it will start that gradient happening close to where your subject is. So I'll just do something like that. Okay, and when I turn that on and off, you can see how now it's just dark in that sky. It's left the foreground alone. But I've already done that, which is this one here. The next thing is I've done an auto curves layer, and that's just added a bit of extra punch through there, which I had probably missed. So to do an auto curves layer, you click on the curves adjustment layer, hold down the option key, and then click auto. That gives you different options. The first one here, enhanced brightness and contrast, is a bit too strong. So I like the enhanced monochromatic contrast. Click OK. That's all you need to do, and you can see how it's just increased the contrast. So I'll take that off. That's it there. And the last thing I've done is I've just done a levels adjustment layer and just lightened up through that water. So very simple. Levels adjustment layer. Pulled this up. I'm looking at the water only. I've mucked around with the contrast a little bit here. Maybe something to do with the midtones as well. But it's more about just looking at what's happening in that water. You can see the sky's going crazy. That's fine. We're just going to invert that. Go B for brush. And we're going to set our foreground color as to white, which is over here, and X on the keyboard will change between black and white as your foreground color, and D is the default. If your background and foreground colors aren't black and white, you hit D and they will be. So I'm just going to brush with white at 100% opacity, and of course the phone would ring. And I'm just going to brush this through here. And you can add more adjustments to it quite easily. You can get back to this afterwards and really start brightening that all up. But I've done that already, and that's what I've done there. And you can see I've done a fairly hard edge. If I click on there, on the mask, you can see what I've brushed. I missed a little bit out the foreground there, but that's fine. I've pretty much done a straight line. And that phone is going to go and go and go until I go. So thanks for listening, and I hope you learned something from this tutorial.